Did you hear that joke about the guys that, I don't know if it was a joke, but guys won the lottery, $350 million, two guys. They bought tickets together and they decided if we buy these tickets, then we'll share. If any one of us win, we'll share this money. And so they looked at television that night and they saw the winning numbers and absolutely went ecstatic because they had won the lottery. And so he was celebrating that he had won all this money. And come to find out, his friend was pulling a joke on him, gave him the numbers of the last winning ticket number, and recorded the reveal of the numbers. And so when they watched it, he thought that he had won $350 million. And so all that excitement went down to are you kidding me? Can you imagine thinking that you won $350 million and then somebody say, no, that's just a joke. You didn't get it. This is what happens. So when you're celebrating, you got to make sure you're celebrating properly. You got to make sure you're celebrating for what you're supposed to be celebrating for. When we talk about this time of year, we talk about Easter, Resurrection Sunday, some of us call it. What are we really celebrating? You know, God doesn't mind. Bible says to the pure, all things are pure. And we're not against having fun, and we're not against, doing fun things and nice things. But sometimes you have to understand the origin of things as well. Some say that the origin of Easter is this fertility goddess. And some don't say it. It's actually a fact. It's a fact that long back when, long before Christianity, long before Moses, that they served and worshiped this god called Ishtar or Istra, like three or few names. That was her name, the fertility goddess that they worshiped. And she was supposed to be the wife of Baal, which is the king of gods, and she's the wife. And he supposedly had died, and she gave birth to a son who had no father. And this son liked bunnies. Son went somewhere, got killed, and so she adopted the bunny. And the eggs represent fertility. So what are we celebrating? God designed and directed and mandated that this time of year be set aside for something. And the enemy is always trying to pervert. Just like Jesus' birth for Christmas, and we have Santa Claus, who knows all, who sees all, and he's giving good gifts. And some people say, take that sand, take that N, and put it to the N, and it spells Satan. This ain't new to you guys. And I don't want to spread conspiracy theories. But what are we celebrating? What are you supposed to be celebrating? Let's read the original. I'm going to read this whole. The Lord said to Moses, and Aaron said to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, this month is to be for you the first month. And when we talk about this time of year, we're talking about how do we decide what day Easter is going to be on? You just saw that yesterday? Yeah. And it's supposed to be the first full moon after the declaration of spring. The spring equinox, first full moon, that next Sunday is Easter. That's why it's never the same day. And it came very early this year because Easter was declared on the 22nd? And the first full moon was like the 25th or 19th, and then the 22nd, the first full moon. And so today is. God was talking about a certain time, and it was around this time that he established this. He said, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, This month is to be for you the first month of the year. Tell the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each man is to take a lamb for his family, one for each household. If any household is too small for a whole lamb, they must share one with their nearest neighbor, having taken into account the number of people there are. Take a lamb representing Christ. Take him on the 10th day of the month. You are to determine the amount of lamb needed in accordance with what each person will eat. The animals you choose must be year-old males without defect. Everything that I'm highlighting, I'm coming back to. Without defect. And you may take them from the sheep or the goats. Take care of them until what? The 14th day. So you take them and you keep them for 4 days. Until the 14th day of the month, when all the members of the community of Israel must slaughter them at twilight. Then they are to take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the doorposts, door frames of the house where they eat the lambs. That same night, they are to eat the meat roasted over fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. Do not eat the meat raw or boiled. We don't want this to be tender. Just straight roasted over fire. But roast it over a fire with the head, legs, and internal organs. With the head, with the legs, and the internal organs. You know, I saw Alone. It's a show called Alone. And the guy shot a squirrel. And they have whatever they kill. They go out there with 10 things, a knife, a rope, a tarp, a flint, whatever, just 10 things. And you got to survive. Build your dwelling, whatever you kill, eat. He killed a squirrel. He didn't gut it. He didn't skin it. Put it on a stick and put it right over the fire. He said the fire's going to burn everything off of it. I thought about that when I read this. I'm like, maybe he got that from here, that you could do that. He said, do not leave any of it till morning. If some is left till morning, you must burn it. This is how you are to eat it. With your cloak tucked in your belt, the belt of truth, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. So we're talking about truth, peace, and that sword. They didn't have the word yet. They didn't have the sword, but that staff. Eat it in haste. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. On that same night, I will pass through Egypt and strike down every. Somebody say every. Every firstborn. He said every. He didn't say the Egyptian firstborn. He said, I'm going to pass through Egypt and I'm going to strike down every firstborn of both people and animals. And I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord, not them. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I said, when I see the blood, I will pass over. I said, when I see the blood. Is that better? When I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. This is a day that you are to commemorate. For the generations to come, you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord, a lasting ordinance. For 7 days, you are to eat bread made without yeast. On the first day, remove all the yeast. Not only are you not going to eat it, I don't want it in your house. Remove all the yeast from your houses. For whoever eats anything with yeast in it, I'm like, Lord, what's with the yeast? We're going to eat bitter, tough meat and some hard, pull your teeth out bread. Whew. Whoever eats anything with yeast in it, from the first day through the seventh must be cut off from Israel. On the first day, hold a sacred assembly, and another one on the seventh day. Do not work at all on these days, except to prepare food for everyone to eat. That is all you may do. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread, because it was on this day that I brought your divisions out of Egypt. Celebrate this day as a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. In the first month, you are to eat bread made without yeast from the evening of the 14th to the evening of the 14th day until the evening of the 21st day. For 7 days, no yeast, he says it again, is to be found in your houses. And anyone, whether foreigner or native born, who eats anything with yeast in it, must be cut off from the community of Israel. Eat nothing made with yeast. Wherever you live, you must eat unleavened bread. Then Moses summoned all the elders of Israel and said to them, go at once and select the animals for your families and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop. Take a bunch of hyssop. Hyssop is this thing, this plant that they use for healing and cleansing. And he said, put that, dip it in the blood. Do you know when they crucified Jesus? When Jesus was on the cross, he said, I'm thirsty. They said they took a sponge, dipped it in wine vinegar, stuck it on a hyssop branch, and raised it up to him. The Lamb of God on the cross. His blood is there. We're talking about this 2,000 years prior to. Hyssop, representing cleansing and healing. I want you to take that and dip it in the blood and in the basin and put some of the blood on top and on both sides of the door frame. None of you shall go out of the door of your house until morning. When the Lord goes through the land to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the tops and sides of the door frames and will pass over that doorway. He'll pass over that doorway, and he will not permit the destroyer to enter that house and strike you down. Obey these instructions as a lasting ordinance for you and your descendants when you enter the land that the Lord will give you as he has promised. Observe this ceremony. And when your children ask you, what does this ceremony mean to you? Then you tell them, it is the Passover. And what are your children asking? Are they asking about Easter, or are they asking about the Passover? When your children see this and see that you're doing it, what do they ask you? You tell them it is the Passover, sacrifice of the Lord, who passed over the houses of Israel, of the Israelites in Egypt, and spared our homes when he struck down the Egyptians. Then the people bowed down and worshiped. They didn't rebel. They didn't say, "Why we got? I like soft bread. I like tender meat." You know, this is an act of faith. This is obedience. They worshiped, which means they obeyed. They bowed down, say, yes, we will do. And the Israelites did just what the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all livestock as well. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was a loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Up, leave my people, you and all the Israelites." So, amazing story. This is what God is telling us to commemorate. So what are we celebrating, really, this week? Next week? What are we really celebrating? We're celebrating victory over death. The destroyer is coming. Without Christ, you're doomed. Will you pass over me? This is the question. This is what I thought should be this week. If he were to come right now, will you pass over me? Is the question. That should be on every heart. Why? Because there is a death angel. Everybody has a date, has an appointment. Everybody. Some call him the Grim Reaper. And if he's gonna pass over you, you're gonna need 4 things. You're gonna need salvation because you're a sinner. You're born in this world. The wages of sin is death. You're gonna need emancipation because you need to be set free from Pharaoh and Egypt. Satan and sin. It's got a grip. So we need emancipation. You need consecration because God is a covenant-keeping God. You're going to need revelation because there's things that need to be revealed to you for you to be sustained. The plagues of Egypt came. See, what this tells me is God is always, always, always fighting for you. He's fighting for you. He's fighting for you. You don't deserve it. You don't even pray to him. You don't even know him. When he came, they didn't know him. They didn't deserve him to be given all these 9 plagues. God is fighting for you. God is trying to cause the enemy to release you. But the enemy is stubborn. The enemy won't release you. He won't. The only way the enemy releases you is an innocent death. Blood is the only thing that gets the enemy. All those plagues didn't work. Only one thing worked. The blood of Christ. The blood of the Lamb. The blood. This is what he said. Take a year-old male lamb or sheep. And this is very interesting. It's going to get crazy before I'm done. He said, take a year-old male sheep or goat and slaughter them. Take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses. This is what he's saying, because we deserve death. We need innocent blood. You have to have innocent blood. You have to put it on the door frames. The door frames represent this wood, this cross, this cross. And you can see a cross above the cross, on the cross. You got to remember that symbol. That's a cross, on a cross. You need an innocent, the Bible, on that same night, I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn. But when I see the blood, I will pass over you. I will pass over you. But and this is why we celebrate victory over death, because in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul is telling these folks, when Christ died, now death has no sting. Death has been swallowed up in victory. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? So now we're not afraid of death. It's a transition from glory to glory. There is no sting because he died for us. That is what we're commemorating this time of year. New life, new springing forth, the true resurrection. I remember when I was a kid, long before I met Pastor Rose, I had a little girlfriend, and I had some rumors, that she might have been letting somebody else talk to her. And, but I had to find out. And when I found out that it was true, I let her free. I let her free. There's a freedom. And this is number 2, emancipation, freedom. You got to be set free from sin and Satan. The Holy Spirit represents the Spirit of truth. If you go to court, nowadays you got to prove your innocence. You're guilty, unless the truth comes, you can't be set free. You have to be set free. And this is the deal. What was the truth that Pharaoh needed to understand? God told them to sacrifice a male lamb. A male lamb, fully grown, is a ram. That is their God. The reason those 9 plagues didn't work is because they never touched. He never challenged this God. That's why God said, I'm going to take care of all those gods. Every plague represents a God that they served. And God went from the bottom to the top. The ram in their culture was the king of gods. So when Moses first went to Pharaoh, he said, let us go out into the woods. He said, I ain't letting you go. You can just do it here. He was like, we can't sacrifice here because the Egyptians, it's an abomination for us to kill a calf. It's an abomination for us to sacrifice a ram. They will kill us if we do that. God used that very thing and said, use this lamb and put that blood on your doorpost. I'm going to show him that this is no God. I'm going to show him that the blood of the very thing that you think is above all, I'm going to kill it, and that's what's going to save them. Wow. They're God. That's the truth. And when the truth comes, oh, they free. You free. He said, what did he say? During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, up, leave. Now I know the truth. He God. He will kill all. If this guy couldn't protect us, if our ram couldn't protect us, we done. Wow. Here's another one. You ever loaned anybody any money? People come to you and ask for money. People come to us and ask for money plenty of times. And you don't really, and I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about thousands. Thousands. And let me just give you some rules. Can I give you some rules? These are scriptural rules. Scriptural rules when it comes to money. The Bible says never cosign. I don't care who it is. The Bible says never cosign. Why? Because if you can't get it, you don't deserve it. If you can't get it, you haven't earned it. If you can't get it on your own, you haven't earned it. And so, and if somebody come to borrow from you, give it to them. If you can't give it to them, you can't loan it to them. That's the rules. Whenever anybody, kids, family members, friends, whatever, give it to them. Don't expect it back. They can say whatever they want to say. Cool. If it comes back, cool. Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, it's gone. And if you can't afford to do that, you can't afford to loan it. Period. That's the rules. Why do I say this? God is a covenant-keeping God. When we have an arrangement, I'm expecting you to keep that arrangement. God put himself on the cross for us, and he's a covenant-keeping God. He wants us to keep our part. There's a part that we play in salvation. That's why Paul said, work out your salvation. There's parts that I'm going to save you, but you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and you got to do this. And if you don't do it, what did he say? On the first day, remove the yeast. What are we talking about? What does yeast represent? Sin, sin, sin. Yeast represents sin. That's why he said, remove the yeast from your house. Remove the yeast from your house. Anybody that eats yeast is cut off. From the first day through the seventh, representing God's number, 7. You must be cut off from Israel. This is the covenant that we're making. I want you to do this. I'm going to do this for you. You have been bought with a price. Oh my gosh. I don't want to jump ahead. You've been bought with a price. It's like we were on an auction block, a slave on an auction block, and God came and redeemed us. And now we owe him our lives. And so he's saying, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go in the house after you kill and put the blood on the post. Go in the house. Don't eat this outside the house. How are you going to be protected if you're not in the house? The sacrifice alone don't save. That's abomination to some people. Somebody going to clip that. Now, sacrifice alone don't save. What he said, you have to believe. And the act of faith is going in the house. How you going to kill, put the blood on it, and then hang out outside? How you doing, Grim Reaper? No. Go in the house. You're covered. Said, eat in the house. Said, take that lamb in the house. Jesus said, I am the bread of life. When you're in the house, you're eating word. And what did he say? Eat it with haste. Don't be trying to find holes and I want to do that and I don't want to do that. And he said, no, with haste. No questions. No hesitation. This is the word of God. Purified by fire. Roasted over fire. It's pure. He wants us to do it. Do it. Don't question. Don't hesitate. Don't rationalize. Don't try to poke holes. Eat the lamb and eat all of it. And if you can't digest all of it because some of it's going over your head, don't waste it. Don't throw it away. Burn it. Back to the purity. Eat in the house. Eat it all from a consuming fire. And then no yeast. Bear your cross. Bear fruit. Bear your cross. Any man that wants to come after me must pick up his cross and follow me. I don't want no yeast in the house. Or you're cut off. Even though they sacrificed that lamb and put that blood over the doorpost, if they wouldn't have done one of these, they wouldn't have been saved. Wow. 1 Corinthians 5:7, Paul is saying, get rid of the old yeast so that you may be a new unleavened batch as you really are. For Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. He's been sacrificed. God did his part. He's a covenant-keeping God. He's going to do his part. And anytime there's a covenant, both parties have a part to play. And finally, revelation. You need revelation. Why? Because the numbers don't lie. And this is for all of those who, and if what I've said is not enough to show that Christ is the Lord, if Christ is the Messiah, that Christ is the one, this will take care of that. Paul, the Apostle Paul, was of the greatest theologians of his time. He had the best education, spiritual, religious education. He was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He did everything properly, right, before God. But didn't know, couldn't see. There are people still in his situation today, in the world and in other religions, can't see, don't know. As great as you are, you're stupid. As great as you are, you're blind. As much education as you got, you're blind. The wisdom of man is foolishness to God because you can't see. But you got to look at the numbers too. In Revelations, the numbers don't lie. 777. These represents the names. See, in every word in Hebrew has a numeric value that communicates a deeper meaning. They read from left to right, not right to left, because God knows the end from the beginning. They read from left to right to left, and God has numbered every word in Hebrew calculates to a number. 777 representing God. 666 is the name of a man, the Antichrist. 888 is Jesus' number. Is Jesus' name. The numbers 777 represents God, which means perfection in creation and life on earth. And the Bible speaks to it a lot of times where it says God finished the heavens and the earth on the seventh day. God rested on the seventh day, and then God blessed the seventh day, all in one passage. Then you had Noah's father, Lamech. It said Lamech lived till 777 years, and then the world ended in the flood. God is speaking. God is in Revelation. He said there's seven bowls, there's 7 trumpets, and there's 7 seals. 7, God's number. That's his name. Satan's number is 666, utter failure in never completing and never coming to perfection. 7 minus 1. Never get there. Never gonna get there. Never gonna rest. Utter destruction, utter failure. That's the name of a man, if you can figure it out. That's what the Bible says. His name is 666. Jesus, his name is 888, which means 7 plus 1, from heaven and earth to create eternal forgiveness and eternity in heaven. His name is above every name. It's interesting that 8, if you turn it sideways, it looks like infinity. The sign of infinity. Because you have 7 days in a week. You come to the 7th day, and then 8 represents new beginning. It's going to be a new beginning. It's weird because it's not weird. It's science. It's God, where you go 7 days and then rest, and then the 8th day is also the first day. So it continues. You never stop. It's eternal. It's infinity. The 8th day is also the first day. There's never an end. There's always a new beginning. As God said, every morning, new mercies. Every morning is new. Wow. This is really going to get you. The number 490, Bethlehem makes 490. It's pointing to Jesus. The Passover lamb equals 490. Without blemish equals 490. And forgiveness equals 490. Wow. God is speaking. God is pointing to Jesus in everything. And these deeper meanings, he's pointing to Christ. 14 represents the hand. It literally spells hand. Deuteronomy 5:15 says, the mighty hand. He said, I will redeem, I will save you with a mighty hand and outstretched arms. By his hand. An outstretched arm. Christ. Speaking about Christ on the cross. He's always said, by my hand, by my hand. Jesus said, and no one will be able to take them from my hand. Wow. And finally, this is the alphabet, and they call it the Aleph. And bet is the number 2, is B, and alpha is Aleph, is A. So that's where we get the word alphabet. Aleph, bet, A and B. On this chart, and this chart, the letters, and this is 22 letters in the Hebrew language. The far left inscription of each one of those is the oldest, and it goes over to get newer, to modern time. Way back, Ezekiel, before Moses, the writings, the sign of the doorpost, the one above, that is Tav. Tav, T-A-V, Tav. That's what that's called, the doorpost, where you put the blood on. The doorpost is Tav. Tav is the last letter in the Hebrew language. The sign of a cross. the blood on the Tav. When Jesus died on the cross, 2,000 years before the Romans even invented a death on the cross, Jesus dies on the cross. Come on, somebody. Let God be true and every man a lie. Let the devil be dead and God be true. Jesus was preordained, pre-told, and this is the season that we celebrate what he did. Aleph Tav. They say he is Aleph Tav, from the left to the right. The Tav is the cross. The cross represents two sticks. Ezekiel, and the sticks is the cross that Jesus lined. The Tav, they call him Aleph Tav. They say the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. What they used to say was the Aleph Tav. When Jesus got on that cross, he said, it is finished, because Tav is the last. It depicts end. It depicts final. It's a sign. That's why when we saw the cross, you saw that X up there. That was the Tav. God told Ezekiel, he told the angel to go to Jerusalem and put a Tav on the foreheads of all my people. The cross.